The bus groaned to a halt at the modest station in Cedar Valley, its heavy metallic screech piercing the quiet of the rainy afternoon. The air that Anna breathed in as she stepped down the stairs was dense and cool, filled with the familiar scent of wet earth and crushed pine, a fragrance that for years she had connected with pleasant childhood holidays, but which now carried the sharp bitterness of defeat. A steady, cold drizzle clung to her hair and dampened the collar of her jacket, mirroring her heavy heart. Beside her on the wet concrete stood two worn suitcases containing everything she owned after leaving the fast-paced world of Boston. Her shoulders slumped. 5 years earlier, she had departed from this very same platform feeling unstoppable, having secured a junior role at a prestigious architectural firm with a heart brimming with grand ambitions. Now, she was returning with a severance notice fresh in her memory and a bank balance that was dangerously low. The corporate restructuring, as the executives had called it, was simply the end of a cherished dream. Through the gray mist, Anna spotted two figures waiting under the small overhang. Her mother, Lucy, whose face was lined with deep concern, and her aunt, Margaret, who stood with arms tightly crossed and an expression that needed no words. Margaret had always been the self-appointed judge of family missteps, quick to offer unsolicited opinions on everyone else's lives. "Anna, my sweet girl," Lucy said, wrapping her arms around her with a strength that was both comforting and overwhelming. Her mother smelled of lavender soap and quiet comfort. "Didn't I tell you, Lucy?" Margaret's voice cut through the moment like broken glass. "Boston is no place for people like us. It is too big. It swallows you whole. Just look at her. She has grown so thin." Anna forced a faint smile that did not reach her eyes. "Hello, Aunt Margaret. I am fine. Just tired from the long trip." "Tired, I can imagine," Margaret continued, her sharp gaze sweeping over the two bags on the ground with obvious disdain. "You brought your whole life in those? It seems there wasn't much to bring back after all." The remark hit Anna like a physical blow. She swallowed hard, feeling a surge of embarrassment rise in her throat. Lucy cast a sharp look of disapproval at her sister, but remained silent. Her mother's silence, as always, carried more weight than any confrontation. The drive home was spent in the family's aging station wagon, which smelled of old upholstery and dust. The rain drummed against the windshield, while the wipers kept a slow, rhythmic beat. From the front passenger seat, Aunt Margaret talked endlessly about how well her own daughter, Chloe, was doing in her stable municipal job at the local town hall. No wild dreams of designing glass towers for wealthy clients, just steady work and security. Every word felt like a quiet reminder that Anna had chosen the wrong path. Anna looked out the window, watching the familiar streets of Cedar Valley drift past like scenes from an old film. The low-built houses, the neat public squares, the brick church in the center. Everything remained completely unchanged, frozen in time, while she felt entirely out of place, like a puzzle piece that no longer fitted anywhere. When the car pulled up to her mother's two-story house, a tight knot formed in Anna's chest. The faint peeling paint on the porch and the hanging ferns brought back a flood of memories. This house had always been her sanctuary, but today it felt like a cage. She opened the passenger door. The taste of failure mingled with the familiar atmosphere of home, and she was not sure which felt heavier. Anna's bedroom was on the second floor, looking exactly as it had during her teenage years. The pale lavender walls had faded over time. A scratched wooden desk stood in the corner, and her twin bed was covered in a colorful quilt, hand-stitched by her grandmother. The music posters she had once pinned up were gone, leaving faint rectangular outlines on the paint, like shadows of a past life. When she set her two suitcases on the wooden floorboards, the heavy thud echoed through the quiet room, emphasizing its emptiness. Surrounding herself with these old belongings, she had never felt so lost. To occupy her hands and quiet her mind, she began unpacking a few garments. Through the thin floorboards, the murmur of her mother and aunt speaking in the kitchen drifted upward. The walls of the old house had always carried sound easily. "She needs a dose of reality, Lucy," Margaret was saying in her usual authoritative tone. "The girl lives in the clouds with these drawings and architectural ideas. Why couldn't she take a civil service exam like Chloe? At least then she would have real security." "Let her catch her breath, Margaret," Lucy replied, her voice soft and weary, lacking the energy for a prolonged argument. "She just arrived." "Catch her breath? She needs to wake up," Margaret countered firmly. "Tomorrow I will speak with Mr. Arthur at the dry goods store down the street. He can give her a spot behind the counter. At least she will earn minimum wage and stop daydreaming." Anna closed her eyes, clutching a cotton sweater tightly in her hands. Working behind a counter measuring fabric and counting buttons felt completely soul-crushing. It was not a matter of pride. It was the morning of a lifelong dream. She had spent 5 years in rigorous university study, pulled countless late nights perfecting floor plans, and mastered complex design software, only to be steered toward a job selling sewing supplies. Her aunt's intention of being helpful felt overwhelmingly stifling. Dinner that evening was an exercise in quiet endurance. Her cousin, Chloe, joined them, practically glowing as she discussed her administrative role in the town's urban planning office. She spoke endlessly about permit approvals and routine paperwork, casting subtle, condescending glances toward Anna throughout the meal. "It is very stable work, you know, cousin," Chloe remarked while cutting her chicken. "No high stress, and a guaranteed paycheck on the first of every month. The town always needs organized people. Perhaps you could apply for a receptionist opening there. At least you would be near the field." Anna merely murmured, "I will consider it," pushing the food around her plate without any real appetite. Later, back in the quiet safety of her bedroom, she opened her laptop. The screen illuminated her face, highlighting the dark circles beneath her eyes. Out of habit, she opened her digital portfolio. Page after page displayed her work. 3-dimensional renderings of contemporary buildings, detailed layouts for sustainable homes, and an interior design concept for a boutique cafe that had earned her an award during her final year of college. They were tangible proof of her skill and dedication, yet proof alone could not pay her monthly bills. Lacking enthusiasm, she opened a local job board, expecting to find only basic retail positions or temporary office work. She scrolled aimlessly until a small, modest listing caught her eye. It was written in precise, professional language. Seeking an architect or spatial designer for a private consultation on a historic restoration project in the greater Cedar Valley area. Portfolio and creative vision required. Please submit resume and work samples to the email address below. There was no company name or salary range listed. It was vague, almost mysterious. Yet the words "historic restoration" and "creative vision" kindled a faint spark inside her. It was a small opportunity, but it was a chance to do what she loved. Without hesitation, she composed a thoughtful reply, attaching her resume and a link to her portfolio. It felt like a shot in the dark, a desperate attempt to prove to herself and her family that her career was far from over. The days following the submission of her application moved with painful slowness. Every morning, Anna woke up with a flicker of anticipation, opened her laptop, and was met with the same motionless inbox. The tiny flame of hope that the advertisement had sparked began to dim with each passing hour. Life inside her mother's home settled into a quiet, heavy routine. She spent her time assisting with household chores, listening to her cousin Chloe's lengthy updates about town hall gossip, and constantly dodging her Aunt Margaret's persistent attempts to manage her future. On Wednesday afternoon, Margaret arrived for lunch with a triumphant expression, waving a small piece of paper in her hand. "Good news, niece," she declared proudly. "I spoke with Mr. Arthur at the store. He said you can start this coming Monday. The pay is modest, but it is honest work to keep your mind occupied." Anna felt the air leave her lungs. The familiar aroma of roasted vegetables from the stove suddenly felt overwhelming. She looked at her mother for support, but Lucy merely offered a weak, reassuring smile, a gesture that silently urged her to accept the favor without causing friction. "I appreciate your help, Aunt Margaret. Truly," Anna said softly, keeping her voice steady. "But I am still hoping to find something in my actual field." "Your field?" Margaret let out a short, dry laugh. "My dear, your field remained in Boston. Here in Cedar Valley, people need sturdy roofs that do not leak, not fancy structures made of glass and steel. Sometimes one must step down from high expectations. Chloe did not start at the top either, did you, dear?" Chloe, who had been filing her nails with little interest, raised her head. "That is true, cousin. We all start at the bottom. What matters most is having connections to guide you. Mr. Arthur is very well respected in town." The remainder of lunch passed in near silence. Anna ate mechanically, feeling the weight of their polite pity. She knew they were not cruel people. They simply could not understand that taking a job behind that counter felt like surrendering her professional identity entirely. It meant agreeing with their belief that she had failed. By Friday afternoon, her last bit of optimism had faded. The mystery listing had surely been filled, or perhaps it was never real to begin with. Her mind painted dreary pictures of her future behind the shop counter, measuring bolts of fabric for local tailors day after day. In that mood of quiet resignation, she checked her email one last time before closing her laptop. A new message sat at the top of her inbox. The sender was listed simply as R. Montgomery, and the subject line read, "Interview, Restoration Project." Her heart gave a sudden, sharp thud. With trembling fingers, she clicked the message open. "Dear Anna, we have reviewed your portfolio with great interest. Your approach to spatial harmony and structure aligns well with what we hope to achieve. We would like to invite you for an initial interview tomorrow, Saturday, at 10 o'clock in the morning. The meeting will take place at the main gate of the old Shadowcrest estate on Oak Ridge Road. Please confirm your availability. Sincerely, Raphael Montgomery." Shadowcrest Estate. Anna leaned back, searching her memory. The estate was legendary around Cedar Valley, a vast, grand property that had stood empty for decades after its original owners relocated to Europe. Local stories painted it as a forgotten ruin. The idea that someone was planning to restore it filled her with a sudden surge of energy. She immediately typed out her confirmation. That night, sleep came slowly, not from sorrow, but from the excitement of a real possibility. Saturday morning arrived with faint sunlight breaking through light gray clouds. Anna borrowed her mother's old vehicle, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She dressed in her finest professional attire, tailored trousers and a simple silk blouse. It felt slightly formal for an outdoor meeting, but the clothing acted as a protective shield for her confidence. As she drove down the quiet dirt road leading to the estate, curiosity mingled with her nervous energy. The massive iron gates of Shadowcrest, weathered with rust, stood half open. Parked nearby was a rugged, mud-splattered pickup truck. Leaning against the driver's side door was a man wearing worn jeans, a flannel shirt, and sturdy work boots. His hair was slightly tousled by the morning breeze, and he carried an unbothered, practical air. Anna assumed he was a site manager, or caretaker, sent to escort her onto the grounds. She parked the car and stepped out, adjusting the strap of her bag over her shoulder. "Good morning," she said pleasantly. "I am Anna. I have an appointment with Mr. Raphael Montgomery." The man looked at her attentively, a thoughtful expression touching his eyes. "I know who you are." "You are right on time," he replied in a calm, deep voice. "Follow me, please." Instead of leading her toward the truck, he began walking up the long avenue lined with ancient oak trees, leading toward the main residence. Anna followed him, her high heels sinking slightly into the damp earth. The silence of the estate was broken only by their footsteps and the distant chirping of birds. When they rounded the bend, the scale of the structure took her breath away. Though worn by decades of neglect, the grand house maintained an unmistakable dignity, with towering stone columns and lofty windows. Ivy climbed across portions of the masonry, as though nature were slowly reclaiming the stone. "It is quite something, isn't it?" the man remarked, stopping to turn toward her. "It is remarkable," Anna replied, her eyes automatically taking in every architectural detail. "The foundation appears remarkably solid. Look at the balance of the proportions, and the way the structure was oriented to capture natural light. Allowing a building with this much character to fall apart would be a tragedy." He offered a genuine smile that brightened his features. "That was my exact thought. So tell me, architect from Boston, what would you do with a place like this?" The question caught her by surprise. It was not a standard interview prompt. It felt like a genuine challenge. Anna looked up at the facade, seeing past the decay to its true potential. "I see a dialogue between eras," she began, feeling her professional passion return in full force. "I see the opportunity to carefully restore this historical shell, honoring the craftsmanship of the original builders. But inside, I would introduce open spaces, structural glass, clean steel, and warm timber. A modern interior that does not erase the past, but converses with it. I would salvage the original ceiling beams to craft custom fixtures, expand those grand windows to flood the rooms with daylight, and frame the natural landscape outside so the house feels alive again." She spoke with clarity and energy for several minutes, pointing toward different sections of the building. When she finally paused, she was slightly out of breath. The man watched her attentively. "Your vision is precisely what this property needs," he said quietly. "You do not simply want to repair it. You want to restore its spirit." "Thank you," Anna said, feeling her cheeks warm slightly. "I am very glad Mr. Montgomery shares that perspective." He extended a hand marked by honest hard work. "I am Raphael Montgomery." Anna froze for a moment, her mind quickly adjusting to the revelation. The unpretentious man standing before her in simple work clothes was the investor behind the project. She accepted his handshake, noting the firm, ground anchor of his grip. "You," she stumbled slightly. "I assumed Mr. Montgomery would be wearing a formal suit." He gave a light, amused laugh. "I prefer investing resources into craftsmanship rather than expensive wardrobe choices, and I like being directly involved in the work." "The position is yours, Anna, if you want it." Standing under the morning sun before a historical house that promised a new beginning, Anna felt, for the first time in a very long time, that she was exactly where she belonged. Anna drove home with the radio off, enjoying the quiet hum of the engine. Her thoughts drifted back through every detail of the morning. Raphael's firm handshake, the genuine interest in his eyes as she described her ideas, and his direct, confident offer of employment. A soft laugh escaped her lips, a moment of pure relief. For the first time in months, her path forward seemed clear and full of potential. However, as she pulled into her mother's driveway, her excitement was met by a familiar wave of hesitation. She knew what awaited her inside. Opening the front door, the aroma of freshly baked cornbread greeted her, a scent that usually brought comfort, but today felt like the preface to an interrogation. In the living room, sitting together on the sofa, were her mother, Aunt Margaret, and Chloe. They looked up as she entered. "Well?" Margaret asked directly, her tone suggesting she expected news of another disappointment. "Was it a waste of time?" Anna stood tall, letting her calm demeanor steady her. It was not a waste of time at all. In fact, it went wonderfully. "I accepted the position." A brief silence descended on the room. Lucy was the first to speak, a gentle smile breaking across her face. "Truly, Anna? That is lovely. Is it with a firm in town?" "Not quite," Anna explained, trying to keep her tone modest. "It is the chief design role for the restoration of the Shadow Crest estate." Chloe let out a small, skeptical laugh. "Shadow Crest? What are you going to do there? Design for the owls?" "I am directing the architectural restoration," Anna answered clearly, ignoring the jab. Margaret narrowed her eyes. directing it yourself. And who is this person who hired you? Is he from a known family here? Does he have an established business? Anna felt her defensiveness rise, but kept her composure. His name is Raphael Montgomery. He owns the property, and we discussed the project at length today. So you agreed to work for a complete stranger at an abandoned property without knowing his background. Margaret's voice carried a mix of doubt and disapproval. My dear, how naive. What about a formal contract? Did he provide anything in writing, or is this just verbal promises? The questions poked at the fragile bubble of Anna's good mood, bringing back the very doubts she had pushed aside. We are finalizing the contract details on Monday, she said quietly. He was entirely professional. Professional? Margaret chuckled dryly. And how was he dressed? A tailor-made suit? Driving a luxury vehicle? Anna hesitated. He was dressed practically, jeans and a flannel shirt. Margaret and Chloe exchanged a swift, knowing look. We warned you, their expressions seemed to say. She has listened to the tall tales of some wanderer. Anna, please, Margaret said, standing up. You turned down a reliable position with Mr. Arthur, a respected merchant in this town, to chase wild promises with a stranger, in work boots out in the woods. You have lost your senses. He is not just anyone. Anna's voice carried a sudden firmness that surprised even herself. You know nothing about him or the vision for that property. Could you, just once, be happy for me without assuming the worst? Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked upstairs to her room, locking the door softly behind her. She sat on the edge of her bed, feeling the heavy burden of her family's skepticism. Then, her phone chime announced a new email. It was from R. Montgomery. With a fast-beating heart, she opened the attachment. It was a formal service agreement labeled Anna Design Services. Complete with professional terms, clear project phases, and a proposed compensation figure that was nearly 3 times what she had earned in Boston. Below the document was a short note. Anna, here is the draft agreement for your review. The compensation reflects the value your expertise brings to Shadowcrest. We can discuss details on Monday. I look forward to bringing this estate back to life together. Have a wonderful weekend. Raphael. Looking at the numbers on the screen, Anna felt a deep sense of validation. The doubts echoing from downstairs quieted into insignificance. Monday arrived with the clear promise of a fresh start. Anna woke up well before her alarm, feeling a wave of vitality she had not experienced in months. She ignored the quiet glances at the breakfast table and left the house with quiet confidence. When she arrived at Shadowcrest, the rusted iron gates were already open. Raphael's pickup truck was parked near the main house, and he was kneeling near an exterior wall, examining the vintage brickwork. Hearing her footsteps, he stood up and smiled warmly. Today he wore a clean, simple t-shirt, jeans, and had a carpenter's pencil tucked behind his ear. Good morning, architect. Ready to get to work? Always ready, she replied, smiling back. Raphael led her inside to one of the sounder ground-floor rooms. In the center, a large wooden plank rested atop 2 sturdy sawhorses, serving as a makeshift workbench. On it lay a laptop, several rolls of paper, and a large thermos. Welcome to Central Headquarters, he announced cheerfully. It may not look like a high-rise office, but the coffee is fresh. Anna laughed softly. It is perfect. Good, because we have our first real puzzle to solve, Raphael said, his expression becoming focused. He unrolled a faded document across the workbench. It was a copy of an original building plan from the late 19th century, worn with age and missing key structural details. These are the only historical records the town registry had. Unfortunately, water damage has made half the measurements unreadable. Anna leaned over the paper, studying the faded ink lines. Without precise measurements of the current standing frame, I cannot build accurate digital models for the restoration permits. Precisely, Raphael nodded. We could hire an outside surveying crew and wait 3 weeks for them to fit us into their schedule. Or, he looked at her with a challenging smile. Anna caught his meaning instantly. Or, we measure every inch of it ourselves. Raphael's smile widened. I knew I hired the right person. They spent the remainder of the day immersed in dust and history. Equipped with measuring tapes, pads, and lanterns, they moved systematically through the house, from the cool stone basement to the expansive attic spaces. It was demanding, physical work. Anna called out dimensions while Raphael noted them down on detailed hand-drawn sketches. They developed a seamless rhythm, each anticipating what the other needed. As they worked, they shared stories about their backgrounds. Anna learned that Raphael's family held a prominent place in the financial sector, but he had always felt out of place in corporate boardrooms. He had sold his shares in a family venture to invest in projects that held real historical and community value. Shadowcrest was his most ambitious undertaking. My colleagues thought I had lost my mind, Raphael admitted, as he held the end of a measuring tape against a high doorway. They only look at quick financial returns. They don't see the enduring character of a place like this. I see it, Anna said gently. I see exactly what you see. By late afternoon, they were exhausted and covered in dust, but they possessed a complete notebook of accurate measurements. They sat together on the front porch steps, watching the sun begin its drop toward the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of gold and amber. Thank you for today, Anna, Raphael said, looking at her thoughtfully. Your dedication makes all the difference. It is my job, she answered, though her heart warmed at his sincerity. It is more than that, he replied quietly. You care about this place just as much as I do. In the peaceful silence that followed, Anna realized she was not just working on an architectural project. She was building a meaningful partnership, one that carried far more worth than any title she had left behind. Over the next few weeks, Shadowcrest became the center of Anna's world. Her mornings were spent at the property, inspecting timber frames, assessing foundation stability, and uncovering original design details hidden beneath years of neglect. Her afternoons and evenings were spent in her bedroom at home, which she had converted into a quiet studio. Using the precise dimensions she and Raphael had gathered, Anna brought the estate to life within her design software. The lines on her screen transformed into detailed three-dimensional structures. She preserved the dignified historic exterior while reimagining the interior layout to maximize natural light and open space. She planned a central courtyard topped with a subtle glass skylight and designed modern energy features that blended seamlessly into the original architecture. On Thursday afternoon, she invited Raphael to view the initial three-dimensional models. He leaned over her laptop at the makeshift workbench, his shoulder resting close to hers. Anna could feel his calm presence as she navigated through the digital views, explaining her structural choices with quiet confidence. Raphael remained silent for a long moment, studying the screen intently. Anna felt a momentary touch of nervousness. Had she taken too many creative liberties? Anna, he said finally, his voice low. He turned to look at her, his dark eyes filled with genuine appreciation. This is far better than anything I had imagined. You didn't just capture the layout. You captured the spirit of what this place ought to be. A profound sense of relief washed over her, followed by a warm, genuine smile. I am so glad you like it. We still have a long way to go, of course, but… We do, he gently interrupted, his gaze holding hers. But the heart of the project is right here. That shared moment deepened the understanding between them. Their daily conversations naturally expanded beyond construction plans. During lunch breaks on the porch, they talked about their personal journeys. Anna spoke of the quiet pressure of wanting to make her family proud after being the first to attend university, and the sharp sting of returning home without a title. Raphael shared the isolation of stepping away from his family's corporate expectations to pursue work that felt authentic to him. My father felt I was throwing away a secure career to play with old bricks, Raphael shared with a reflective smile. He thought I was wasting my background. My aunt felt the same about my choices, Anna replied, feeling a deep connection to his experience. Though in her version, my highest calling was working behind a retail counter. They laughed together, a bright sound that echoed softly across the open grounds. In those quiet hours, they were no longer just employer and designer. They were two people who understood the courage it took to define success on their own terms. On Friday evening, as they wrapped up a productive week of planning, the sky turned a soft shade of indigo. "You look tired," Raphael observed as they packed away their tools. "And isn't your mother's station wagon still at the repair shop today?" Anna nodded with a sigh. "It is. I was planning to call a local taxi service." "Nonsense," Raphael said firmly. "Allow me to drive you home." "Thank you, Raphael. That would be a great help." She followed him out toward the driveway, expecting his usual practical truck. Instead, parked under the shade of a large oak tree, was a sleek, impeccably clean dark SUV, an elegant vehicle that stood in striking contrast to the rugged work site. Anna looked at it in surprise. "That is certainly not your everyday truck." Raphael smiled with a touch of sheepishness. "I had a morning meeting with regional heritage directors in the city, and the truck isn't quite suited for formal presentations. This is my vehicle for formal occasions." Anna chuckled as he opened the passenger door for her. The interior was refined and comfortable. The ride back to town was smooth and relaxing, filled with soft music from the sound system. As they turned onto Anna's street, she saw her mother, Aunt Margaret, and Chloe sitting together on the front porch, enjoying their evening tea, their usual spot for watching the neighborhood. Raphael brought the large, silent vehicle to a smooth stop right in front of the gate. For a moment, the three women on the porch froze, likely assuming a stranger had pulled into the wrong driveway. Then the passenger door opened, and Anna stepped out. The effect was instantaneous. Aunt Margaret's teacup stopped halfway to her mouth, her eyes widening in total shock. Chloe stared with open amazement, looking from Anna to the luxury vehicle, and then to the tall man stepping out from the driver's side. Raphael walked around to say goodnight. He was wearing his simple work shirt and jeans, yet standing beside the polished vehicle, his calm demeanor conveyed unmistakable dignity. "Thank you for the ride, Raphael. Have a restful weekend," Anna said, her voice calm and composed, though a quiet sense of satisfaction settled in her chest. "You too, Anna. Get some rest. You've earned it," he replied warmly. He offered a polite nod toward the porch, stepped back into the car, and drove away, the quiet engine humming softly down the street. Anna turned and walked steadily up the front path. The silence on the porch was so complete it felt almost surreal. The subtle jabs and skeptical comments had completely vanished, replaced by utter astonishment. As she climbed the steps, she passed her aunt and cousin without needing to say a word, meeting her mother's wide-eyed, amazed gaze with a gentle, reassuring smile. The family that had doubted her return was now silent. The quiet on the porch lingered long after the sound of the vehicle had faded down the street. Margaret was the first to regain her voice, though her tone had lost its usual sharp authority. Who was that man, Anna, and whose car was that?" Chloe was still staring at the empty street. "That vehicle costs more than most houses in this neighborhood," she murmured softly. Anna paused near the front door, feeling entirely grounded. The frustration she had carried for weeks had dissolved into a calm, unshakable self-assurance. She looked at her aunt, then at Chloe, and finally at her mother. "That was Raphael Montgomery," Anna replied steadily, "my client, and the owner of Shadow Crest." "But you said he wore simple clothes and work boots," Margaret stammered, trying to reconcile her assumptions with what she had just witnessed. "He wears what the work calls for," Anna explained simply. "He had a formal meeting with city directors today. He doesn't feel the need to prove his position to anyone." Margaret opened her mouth as if to offer another skeptical remark, but for once no words came. Lucy stood up slowly, her voice soft with genuine concern. "Does he treat you well, Anna?" Anna looked at her mother, her tone softening. "He treats me with more professional respect than anyone I have worked with before, Mom. He values my ideas." Over the following month, the atmosphere inside the house underwent a noticeable shift. Margaret stopped mentioning the dry goods store. Chloe grew remarkably quiet regarding town hall affairs, and the condescending advice was replaced by a respectful distance. They could not fully grasp the scope of Anna's work, but they understood the clear evidence of respect and success they had witnessed. At Shadowcrest, the restoration moved forward rapidly. Craftsmen and contractors arrived. Tools echoed through the structure, and the historic framework received much-needed structural support. Late one evening, after finishing a set of detailed drawings for the restoration board, Anna and Raphael sat on the quiet terrace, looking out over the moonlit grounds. "I have to confess something," Raphael said softly, looking up at the historic stone arches above them. "The night after I purchased this estate, I sat in my apartment, wondering if I had made a massive mistake. I wondered if my family was right, and I was simply chasing an impractical dream." "What made you stay the course?" Anna asked gently. Raphael turned to look at her, his dark eyes reflecting the quiet starlight. "You did. The day you walked up that driveway and shared your vision with so much conviction, I knew the project had a true purpose. You gave this place a heart." He reached out, taking her hand in his. His grip was warm and steady. "And over these past weeks, I realized that my passion for this project is inseparable from how much I have come to care for you." Anna felt her heart beat faster, a deep wave of happiness rising within her. The shared hours, the mutual respect, and the quiet understanding between them had grown into something deeply meaningful. She did not need words to answer. She leaned in slightly, and Raphael met her halfway. Their kiss was gentle and genuine, a quiet promise spoken in the calm evening air of the estate they were bringing back to life together. 3 months passed swiftly. Shadowcrest was no longer a neglected memory. Sturdy scaffolding framed the exterior, fresh timber reinforced the roofline, and restored windows caught the morning sun. The first phase of the restoration was complete, and Raphael organized an evening gathering for local historical board members, community leaders, and press to share the vision for the estate's future as a cultural center and boutique heritage inn. Raphael insisted that Anna's family attend as honored guests. "They should see the incredible work you have accomplished here," he told her softly. The evening arrived with clear, starry skies. Anna wore an elegant, simple dress, paired with practical shoes, suited for walking the grounds, moving confidently among the guests to oversee final details. When her mother's station wagon pulled up, Anna walked down the stone path to greet them. As Lucy, Margaret, and Chloe stepped out, they froze in absolute wonder. The grand house, illuminated by warm exterior lighting, stood restored and magnificent against the evening backdrop. "Anna," Lucy whispered, her eyes shining with emotion. "You designed all of this?" "We brought it back together, Mom," Anna answered with a warm smile. Chloe looked around, her earlier condescension replaced by genuine awe. "It is truly remarkable, Anna. I had no idea." Even Margaret appeared humbled. She looked at her niece, seeing not a defeated relative who had returned home empty-handed, but an accomplished professional standing at the center of something extraordinary. "You always were determined," Margaret offered quietly, her tone softer than ever before. Raphael stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Anna's waist in a gesture of natural support. He greeted her family with genuine warmth and charm, instantly putting them at ease. Later, inside the grand hall where original oak beams spanned the high ceiling, Raphael stepped up to address the assembled guests. He spoke eloquently about the history of Cedar Valley, the importance of preserving architectural heritage, and the future of the estate. However, Raphael stated, his voice echoing clearly through the space, a structure is merely wood and stone without a guiding vision. This estate owes its rebirth to the exceptional talent, dedication, and artistic spirit of our lead architect, Anna. He turned toward Anna, reaching out his hand to invite her forward. The room burst into warm applause. Camera flashes lit up the space. Holding her hand securely, Raphael looked at her with unspoken pride. Anna has not only transformed this historical landmark, she has become the light of my life. Together, we are building a future here. As the applause continued, Anna looked into the crowd. She saw her mother wiping away tears of pure joy, her cousin clapping enthusiastically, and her aunt nodding in clear approval. Standing beside the man who believed in her vision, surrounded by the tangible results of her hard work, Anna reflected on the journey that had brought her back to Cedar Valley. The difficult return, the quiet doubts, and the skepticism of others had all been stepping stones toward discovering her true strength. She had not needed to prove anything to anyone else. She simply needed the courage to honor her own potential. Life often tests our resolve, not to break our spirit, but to show us what we are truly made of. When we encounter unexpected setbacks, it is easy to view a sudden turn of events as a permanent defeat. We live in a world that frequently measures worth by grand titles, external validation, and visible status. Yet, true fulfillment is rarely found in the applause of others. It is forged in the quiet resilience with which we rebuild our lives when circumstances shift beneath our feet. It is a profound truth of human experience that those closest to us, even those who love us, may sometimes view our ambitions through the narrow lens of their own fears and limitations. When loved ones urge us to accept lesser paths or settled routines, it is often not out of malice, but out of a desire for predictability and safety. Accepting their diminished vision for our lives may seem easier in moments of exhaustion, but doing so quietly dims the unique potential we carry within us. Courage requires us to listen politely to the doubts of others, while remaining steadfastly committed to the path we know is ours to walk. Furthermore, dignity is never defined by the circumstances we find ourselves in, nor by the simple clothes we wear or the modest beginnings we return to. Real dignity stems from character, dedication to our craft, and the integrity with which we treat others. When we focus on doing meaningful work with passion and humility, success ceases to be something we must prove. It becomes a quiet, undeniable reality that speaks for itself. Ultimately, the greatest projects we ever undertake are not made of stone, glass, or professional achievements. They are the lives we build through patience, faith, and perseverance. When we have the courage to trust our abilities during our darkest hours, we discover that what felt like an end was simply the necessary space for a far greater, more meaningful beginning.